And you're muted.
And I'm muted. Hey, what's up, Panther fans? Back again with another Beat Check. It's the C3 Panthers podcast. And we've missed a couple of these in the past couple of weeks because, the holidays and the new year, but also a lot has been going on in the show and on the Friday free-for-all with the playoffs and the post games. But the Beat Check is back tonight. We'll be hanging out with Josh Klein from the Riot Report, and I'm hanging out with my wheelman, my best bud, Cody Lashney. And strangely, we were up for hours and hours on Tuesday night talking about everything's Panther, and there's still more to talk about.
Yeah, man, the story of our lives. There's always more Panther-related news to be talked about. And how about this? The Panthers are already violating rules, not even a week and a half into their official coaching search. Man, dude, it's par for the course. But tonight ought to be a fun night. We're going to talk to Josh Klein. We haven't spoken to him in a while, so that ought to be fun. But Tony Dunn, let's do a real quick roll call. You already know we got some of the best Panther fans in all of YouTube. My guy, Drew, Craig Cartner, Dan Floyd, These Ill Skills, Jarrell Strickland, Matt Knows Nothing, Tim Estes, Vols Guy 23, and Underground West. Tony Dunn, ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
The Beat Check is where we put our ear to the ground and check the latest headlines and catch up with a beat reporter, either from the team, someone covering the Carolina Panthers, or during the season, we often catch up with a beat reporter from the opponent. Tonight's guest will be Josh Klein. He should be here in probably the next 5 or 10 minutes. So we'll give kind of a shorter podcast tonight. We want to keep it tight. So you guys get in there, tell us your thoughts about what's going on, what the top stories are that have developed since Tuesday night. And right when you don't think that there's but so much you can talk about, the Tuesday show went on for a bazillion hours as we argued about the potential of Sean Payton, some of these coaching hires, and a lot of things about Steve Wilkes and some different things. But today, Cody, some news broke regarding the Panthers being in violation of some league rules in the HR process, some training that the people on the hiring committee have to go through. And Nicole Tepper, who was a controversial name in some ways, at least fodder for the Twitter conversation when it comes to like, what the hell's going on with the Panthers? And does David Tepper but know what he's doing? And if he doesn't know anything about football, what will she know? I always love that argument because you can't know anything less, in my opinion, and at that point. But so there's been a rules violation, and that is the hot story. But as we might as well, while we're talking about and getting into that, let's bring on our guest. Josh Klein from the Riot Report is here now. What's up, my man?
Josh, what's up, dudes? Right. How's it going? I'm doing fantastic. Always exciting in Pantherland. I thought we were just going to be talking about defensive coordinator hires and Sean Payton and interviews, but apparently we'll be talking about other stuff too. So excited about it.
Josh, right, could we just jump into this? Give us a little bit of insight as to what's going on. Nicole Tepper did not complete mandatory inclusive hiring training before the team's search began. What exactly does this mean, and how do you think this even came about? And what does this mean for the Panthers moving forward now?
Sure. I mean, I guess we'll go right in order. As I'm sure you guys know, or maybe whatever, the Rooney Rule got revamped a little bit this year as the league has been trying to like tweak it to make sure it actually works. It doesn't, but and as they tweak it, they almost make it worse rather than better. And one of the things that they added was that everybody that was on the hiring committee has to take these mandatory online training, or I actually don't even know that they're online. I just assume online because if you've ever worked in a corporate situation or just most jobs, you have to take some sort of online mandatory training, whether it's like sexual harassment or inclusivity or whatever. And obviously this was something that when the NFL sent memos to the league or to all the teams that this was part of the hiring process, they included some people that they could get get trained with, or they could find their own trainers or whatever. And it seems pretty clear that, they had to check boxes of who was going to be as part of the hiring committee, that they had to check through these boxes. And the team is saying that she did complete training. The NFL is saying that they didn't, or at least Jonathan Jones is reporting that the NFL is telling him that they didn't complete this training. So it's going to be a little bit of he said, she said. Ultimately, and this is strictly my opinion, I don't really think anything's really going to come of it. I don't think they're going to lose a first round pick. I don't think they're going to.
No way. Yeah, that's got to be impossible.
I think they're going to get. I think they're going to get a fine, and Nicole Tepper is going to take that. It's probably going to have that training done by the time Sean Payton walks into a hotel room tomorrow. So, I think this is one of those things where it's funny that you use the phrase like fodder for Twitter. It's kind of the same thing. Like, I feel like this is going to be the story for the next 18 hours of just like, oh my God, we can't get anything right. But it's just like, it's a continual situation where it's like,
it's what the NFL loves.
They can't get out of their own way sometimes.
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's something to talk about at the very minimum. When you're irrelevant, you're still relevant in this case. This one though is a non-issue. There's a couple of things. The irony of this, there's some irony to this, and that is that corporate, like I work in that world where you have to, like, there are rules. I mean, like when you have big organizations, companies, and things like this, you have to have standards, or else it would just be ridiculous. So yes, it's bureaucracy. Yes, it's administration, but like that's what happens when you're just giant, right? And so, I mean, these are just kind of things you do. So like if you ever deal with anybody that has that real HR committee, you got to go to training about how to properly interview candidates. So you're not doing these types of things. The irony about this is that the rule violation is an inclusivity kind of agenda or thrust or whatever whatever the right word is at that point. And the irony is, in a male-dominated business is like the NFL, where women have almost zero role in it, the violator of the inclusivity process
being a woman.
Is a woman. Like, that's the irony of this entire kind of situation here. But I just cannot foresee it being a serious draft pick. Like, if it was first of all, it probably shouldn't be a draft pick at all. And if it's anything but a 7th, if there was a penalty, I would be floored. But as we continue to talk about this coaching search, because that's what you talked about, is that really the Panthers are on the search. They're out there on the prowl with a bunch of other teams now. And Sean Payton is the belle of the ball. It was Harbaugh 2 weeks ago. I thought that's where when they said there was a rule violation, I thought it was going to be talking to Harbaugh. Like, some kind of non-interview conversation. I thought that would be kind of what the violate, like the conversation went too far and too deep in the specifics before the interview process went. Should we be excited about this Sean Payton? Actually, what the hell? Sean Payton? Vagina lips on his face guy?
I think I would turn that back on you. Like, are you guys excited about Sean Payton? I can tell you.
Hell yeah.
Josh, we're torn. Because, in my opinion, I would love to have the offensive mind that is Sean Payton. I think what complicates it.
Tony's response did not sound torn.
No, I mean, listen, I love
torn.
Sean. There's a rift between Panther fans in wanting someone like a Sean Payton versus not wanting to give up potentially 2 first-round draft picks to a division rival. That complicates the things considerably. My question to you, Josh, do you think that this is even doable for the Carolina Panthers? Let's say that it is 2 first-round draft picks that they're asking for. Do you think Fitterer and Tepper and the Panthers would be willing to send that much for Sean Payton if Sean did indeed want to come to Carolina?
Well, I don't think they would be very happy about it. I guess I would also like couch it with, if Sean Payton comes to Carolina, what does that mean for Scott Fitterer? Because I can't imagine that Sean Payton would come in and be like, oh yeah, sure, you guys have a GM in place already? Great. I'll let him make all the decisions. We're good. I'll just coach the team. You buy the groceries. That seems like it's not going to happen. So if I'm
Sure.
Scott Fitterer, I'm probably not super fired up about it. So especially considering that I just dealt with a coach for 2 years that wanted control over the roster and the rest of the building.
You mean as he just bought the groceries for 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, who knows if
Man,
he even
that
bought the
I feel like
groceries?
he's prime for that role. He's a wet noodle, dude.
I mean, like it's still one out of 32 jobs. So it's like if you're still the GM of a Panthers franchise or of an NFL franchise, even if you don't get to make all the decisions, you might be okay with that. But at the same time, I'm not sure that Sean Payton would be okay with it. I'll say this: I think that if Sean Payton is the coach of the Carolina Panthers, then Tom Brady is going to be the quarterback. And
Whoa, spicy.
That's where
I
it gets
think
complicated for me emotionally.
so. Sean Payton doesn't complicate it for you emotionally.
No, like I don't feel like it's a bridge too far. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like I feel like it's like I'm a married man, right? So like you don't want to there's no adultery is a good adultery, right? But like I feel like Sean Payton is like I kind of
This seems like a torn analogy here.
I
Maybe
said I
maybe
said
you want to back the truck
I
up
just
here
feel
on
like
this.
this is going with Tom Brady and Sean Payton is going something is ringing the bell. You can't bring it back. It's like turning to the dark side. Is selling your soul enough? I feel like with Sean Payton, it's like it's just some kind of racy text. I know it's not a good
I feel like
analogy, but no, I don't think Sean Payton. I don't hate him that much. The only reason I hate him is because he was on the Saints. I mean, that's the only
you don't hate him
reason I
because of the
didn't
bounty
like.
stuff.
So Tony, you were right about that. And I need to take that back. I said on Tuesday's show that the bounty gate was before Cam Newton, but he was a part of that. So yeah, and that's Josh. That's where a lot of Panther fans are upset, is because it does feel like, man, we're going after a guy who had our hero right in his crosshairs during Bounty Gate, and that's a bridge too far for a lot of Panther fans.
I think it's an
That's
interesting
what
kind of.
bothers you.
I think it's kind of an interesting place that the Panthers are in right now because David Tepper has made it pretty clear over the past couple of years that he wants to win at all costs, right? Like he said that. I mean, maybe he hasn't said that exact term, but certainly seems that way. Nothing, no cost is too high, no bridge is too far, no line won't be crossed in the reason of winning. If you can win, if I can win a Super Bowl, if David Tepper can win a Super Bowl to Bank of America Stadium to Carolina, he doesn't care what it costs. And over the past 2 seasons, that has included aggressively pursuing Deshaun Watson, and now appears to be aggressively pursuing Sean Payton, who actively had a bounty out on the most popular and
But he probably had a bounty on every player on every team. You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? Like, I
But
mean, in that way, is like, is it a moral? Was that such a moral transgression that if we are really that upset about that and offended, then we shouldn't just should not just
It
want
still
him
doesn't
in the
help
league.
it doesn't help
Shouldn't
his
want him in.
argument though. Well, he was just another one of every other player. He was telling his players to injure and go after, It doesn't make it better.
Well, if you're going to take that moral position, I think then we should just say this: we oppose Sean Payton being in the league at all. Then,
I mean,
yeah.
I guess the thing is that I think there are a lot of people out there that would say he could be in the league. I would just rather him not be the coach of my favorite team. And
Sure.
and so I guess the other thing for me is that I think that Sean Payton and Tom Brady obviously brings you and whatever. I'm speculating on the Tom Brady stuff a little bit, but
I think it would be
obviously
Carr.
it brings you immediate recognition around the league, makes you the talk of the town. You're leading Sports Center every day for months.
I
They're
know the
probably doing
podcast
NFL
would be
Live and training
popping.
camp.
The podcast would be nuts, like Cody pointed out on Tuesday.
So, in that sense, I think that appeals to David Tepper. It appeals to a lot of the people in that, maybe not in the front office, but it certainly appeals to certain people. And I think it gives you a chance. It certainly gives you a chance in a terrible conference to win the NFC pretty quickly. That being said, you're really like you're really embracing that win at all costs if you do something like that. Because to me, it's a question of like, how long is Sean Payton going to stay? Certainly, how long is Tom Brady going to would stay in that situation, and how much are you giving up to get both of those guys in the building, and how long does that last? I put a poll up on my Twitter that I thought was pretty interesting about, would you rather have 1 year over the next 10 years, would you rather have a 90% chance of 1 Super Bowl and 9 losing seasons, or a 10% chance of 1 Super Bowl and 10 playoff contention seasons? And it was pretty split. Like most, it was like 55, 56% said they'd rather have the 10 playoff contention seasons and 10% chance of winning a Super Bowl. And to me, it's like, that is the Steve Wilkes and rookie quarterback versus Sean Payton and Tom Brady. So
yeah, we asked a similar question on the Tuesday show, and that was, what's it better to be, a Panthers fan or a Bucks fan? The Bucks won they have bookended Super Bowls with terribleness in between, and we've had a kind of good 20 years. But I mean, we've been to the show twice, or whatever. We've been to the Super Bowl twice, but I mean, is a Super Bowl worth it? Like, how much is for our fandom? How much is a Super Bowl worth it? My question to you about this is because as soon as we start talking about Sean Payton, the Bounty Gate, there's an ethical kind of component to our fandom and the team and like the integrity of it. And like, you know what I'm saying, is that we've actually been kind of steeped in with the Deshaun Watson discussion for 2 years, right? And before, so there is this, you're balancing these costs and sacrifices you make. And you mentioned that he kind of has this win all mentality, or maybe he's shown signs of. Do you think maybe Tepper is feeling like he didn't swing for the fences enough in the past, right? Maybe the Deshaun Watson is kind of the fool's gold, but like the aggressive moves we have made have been Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. Like the other stuff didn't work, right? Is like, if you didn't get Watson, year before that, you didn't get, what's his name, Stafford, or was it Stafford then Watson? I don't even know if it's just blending together.
Stafford, then Wilson, Watson.
You've lost on guys, and that kind of, you haven't landed the big ticket yet, that you keep playing the Keno ticket, and you're like, I'm playing the 10 numbers and you should be playing the 4 number. But maybe he hasn't been aggressive enough in his mind. And is there any maybe thing to that?
I don't know whether he feels like he hasn't been aggressive enough, or I feel like he has been plenty aggressive. Things just haven't
traded
out.
up. We haven't traded up in the draft. We haven't landed a quarterback. You played it safe. You know what I'm saying? Herbert was there. We didn't, he wasn't there, but like, you didn't, that maybe you're like, oh, we could have gone after that. We could have been more aggressive there. We let Justin Fields pass. It's not like he's just been super aggressive either. It's kind of been down fairway in some ways.
I think I think he tried really hard to stay out of football stuff. I think he very early in his tenure told Ron Rivera to go to a 3-4, and then realized that when that was revealed, that was not a thing that an owner should be doing. And so he said to himself, you know what? I'm going to hire a football guy, culture builder, and I'm going to let him do his thing. And he wants to let Justin Fields stay on the board and draft a corner. I'm going to let him do that. He wants to draft a defensive tackle and not draft a quarterback. I'm going to let him do that. I'm going to keep my old GM here to keep things in line. And if he wants to sign Teddy Bridgewater, then I'm going to let him do that. And then, every now and then, I think that he has his opinions that he wants to get out there, or whether he wants to get out there or not. He can't help himself a little bit and gets those opinions out there. And when the owners of teams speak, things tend to happen. So, when you have a press conference talking about why you fired Marty Herney, and you say like, the quarterback position isn't playing well enough, or whatever he said, that's going to have repercussions. And that kind of started this whole quarterback veteran train that they've been on for the past 3 years. But I wouldn't say that he hasn't been aggressive enough. I think, honestly, I mean, I think he would probably agree. He's just, some of the decisions he's made have been bad.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree. I think a lot of people would agree with you. Josh, I'm going to ask you a two-pronged question, very short and simple. Who did you think is number one in this horse race to actually be the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers? And number two, who does Josh Klein want to be the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers? Is there a name that you think raised up above all the other ones that is the best candidate? And who do you think is the most likely to actually land the job?
Well, I think that the answer until Wednesday to both questions was Ben Johnson. And then I think that with Johnson going back to Detroit, I don't really love all of the options that are out there. And frankly, I think it's kind of, I think it's frustrating that Steve Wilkes has not really been given a real chance after taking what he did for this doing what he did for this team. And I think that it speaks a lot to the hiring practices that happen in the NFL. And I said at the beginning of the podcast that I don't think the Rooney Rule has been successful, and I think you're seeing it in practice that guys like Jeff Saturday is getting, is the leader in the clubhouse of the Colts head coaching job after going 1-7, and Steve Wilkes can't even get an interview around the league after going 500 with this team. And I know that he has some warts, certainly. I think he would admit that as well. But I think that Wilkes has he has not only a feel for this organization, but to me, kind of embodies a lot of what the Carolina Panthers have been over the past 25 years. And I think that David Tepper, and maybe this is me just being nostalgic and old, and frankly just old, but David Tepper seems to want to turn this team into something that it hasn't been for the past 25 years. And the things that he's done over the past few years to make that happen have largely been a failure. And so I think that when you look at what the kind of man and the kind of coach and the kind of football that Steve Wilkes brings to this organization, that is, to me, what Carolina football has been. And yes, it has been no back-to-back winning seasons, but it has also
I was about to go right there.
Yeah,
Well, let me ask you
absolutely
this.
right.
Do
But it's
you
also
think
been
that
it's also been 2 Super Bowl appearances. It's been 3 straight NFC South. It's been a league MVP that I think there are 20 teams around the league that I think would trade the last 25 years of mediocre Panther football. And certainly, and there are obviously 10 or 12 that wouldn't, and I think you are trying to get to 10 or 12. But to me, it's like that. I don't really love any
opinion
of these.
on this.
Well, hold on.
I don't feel like any of these I don't feel like any of the coordinators that they're looking at are so incredible and so
agreed.
overwhelming.
That's why Peyton's the only name that is. I've been saying this, is that Wilkes could have, if he would have won in Pittsburgh, if he would have, not him, if the Panthers would have won Pittsburgh or that Buccaneers game, he would have done enough to where you could not, like that, like he would have just had the job. Like I think it would have been so hard not to do it. That left enough opening for something to creep in, the discussion at least to creep in. I've maintained that Harbaugh was the only name big enough to kind of dissuade you from the safetiness of that. Clearly Peyton is a name even bigger than Harbaugh's, right, at this point. So, like, it has to have that sexy wow factor to actually be a legitimate thing. And I think Ben Johnson probably made one of the biggest mistakes of his life in his career, because every coordinator who's the hot name this year is a nobody next year. We had that guy, Joe Brady. Everybody was telling me Joe Brady was going to be the fucking next wonder kid. But Ben
Johnson was a little more proven.
But here's the thing: is that ultimately, I think this is that, like, Sean Payton, I think, is like what you said, Josh, about what the Panthers have been. In some ways, that's the kind of problem, is they've been good, but not great. the Super Bowl appearance is there. And I just think I think social media, the hyper coverage of this, the fact that we're going to talk all week about this all day, 24/7, because we have this like the internet is so different than it was in 2012. I don't know if you can that approach that stay the course, middle of the fairway, we're going to be good and have a chance. Is that enough in this era to be what you want it to be? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's just like 9-7. Do you want to just be 9-7 every year? That almost stuck. That's almost worse than being bad. Not because of the draft pick and relevance. Like, I just don't understand. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I just think you got to swing sometimes. And Sean Payton might be the most it's like kind of trying to get Bill Parcells at that time.
Sure. I don't disagree that they need to swing and you need to make I don't disagree. Like, I'm not saying that you should shoot for the middle, but I do think that he does embody what the Panthers franchise and what Panthers football has been. That being said, I don't think that if you hire Sean Payton or if you hire Kafka or who's the other guy, Steichen.
I don't want any of the unprovens. I don't want Dorsey. I don't want Kafka. I want Wilkes or Sean Payton.
But listen to you saying that the Panthers don't swing. There have been a bunch of other teams that have taken that big swing on some unproven offensive names, and look what they're doing. People doubted that Brian Daboll would be able to have success outside of Josh Allen, and the Giants are in the playoffs this year. Josh, you mentioned something. Do you really think that the Panthers organization isn't taking Steve Wilkes seriously as a legit contender to be the head coach? Like, I know you kind of said it. You kind of said it feels like the rules kind of broken. But do you feel like that they're just giving Steve the interview just to satisfy the Rooney Rule and just because he was the interim head coach this year? And was there ever a chance that he actually could land the job?
I think that had he made obviously, I think, a playoff appearance would have gone a long way. Even I think beating the Steelers would have gone a long way. I mean, you hit it. You said it. Like, those kind of things mean a lot. And I think he could have made it very hard for the team and David Tepper and Nicole and Scott Fitterer to give anyone else the job. But he really didn't. I mean, ultimately down the stretch, like, they blew a 14-0 in the 21-10 lead. Yes, it was Tom Brady. Yes, they were injured, whatever. You still lost that game. And so it makes it hard. I think they are considering, I think they are still considering him for coach. But I think that the way that what he did down the stretch for the last 12 weeks of the season, 13 weeks of the season, deserved less than a dozen other interviews. And
why isn't he getting any? He hasn't gotten any interviews. Somebody else should be giving him an interview. Wilkes.
I agree with you. I mean, I think this is,
even if it's a token one, right? I mean,
this is what the NFL does, though. The NFL gives credit to young white coaches
or flavor of the week. You could just call it flavor of the week. I mean, I understand there is even more to it than that, but like there is this just what the hot name is, and that's why I get nervous of Stitching and Ben John. It's like we've seen all of that. That's why Peyton excites me. I know you got a limited time frame. My final question, and I'll let Cody, you guys talk as long as you want. You can stay. We can stay and talk as long as we want. But if you were going to say this, you have the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, and say this in 30 days, is blank. Is it Steve Wilkes? Is it Sean Payton? Or is it just other?
I have thought from the very beginning that the Panthers were going to hire a young offensive coordinator. And I guess it's one of those things where it's like when you pick a team at the beginning of the season and they're in the playoffs,
right?
You're just like, you know what? I'm sticking with the Vikings.
Justify it all year too. You got to justify it too all year.
Exactly. I don't know whether that's the right decision or the wrong decision. I think ultimately 2 first-round picks to a division rival might prove to be plus $25 million a year might prove to be too much for David Tepper coming off of what Matt Rule just did to his franchise. But it might not be. I mean, that's the other thing is that, like, it's really hard for us to tell because it's like my lean is a young offensive coordinator, but like he could go into that interview and Peyton could just absolutely knock it out of the park. They could have a connection and he could be the coach by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Like it's just that's
That
just
would be
the
so dope. If I just, man, I agree with you about it's just the 2. Once you start saying 2 first rounds, it gets like, I'd be fine with 1 first round and some other stuff.
sure. I think if the compensation is next year's first and I don't know this year's
The entire
third
Christian McCaffrey package. I saw you
this
guys
year's
put that tweet out.
Well, Roman Harper went on the radio and he kind of echoed the same sentiment.
Podcast.
Well, he basically said a 2024 first round pick and maybe like a 4th this year. And I think if that was the asking price, Panther fans would be much more okay with it because we're not giving up that 9th overall pick in the draft. But yeah, we certainly don't have we have a lot of fans that are not hip to Sean Payton. You can probably read some of the comments here. But
it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting to me that you guys both seem the big hang up on Sean Payton is the draft compensation rather than the history with the Saints and the division rival of it all.
To me, it isn't. So how about this, Josh? People call me crazy for this, but I would much rather trade for Sean Payton than Lamar Jackson, just because I don't want to give up 3 first-round picks to the Ravens and pay the most guaranteed quarter money out of any team in the NFL. You know, I'm not saying Lamar isn't incredible. He is, but a proven Super Bowl winner.
2023 wasn't a good year for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm trying to make 2024 a better one for myself. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including keto options, calorie smart, vegan plus veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Skip that overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door, and they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Head to factormeals.com/C350 and use the promo code C350 to get 50% off. That's code C350 at factormeals.com/C350 to get 50% off.
Coach is to me more worth it.
What Josh is saying is he's actually just more surprised that we're not more mad about the history of we hold the grudge here. You know, I think Josh, part of it is that I just kind of assume all this shit is happening anyway. You know, is it like, oh, I'm supposed to be floored and take the moral high ground all the time? It's like, but then the other is Cody said this on Tuesday. He's like, if we got Tom Brady in this, we're the bad boys. We're the bad guys of the NFL. And I was like, I've never been the bad guy. We're not the Boy keep Scouts pounding. We're supposed to be the boys. Yeah, is like, and I was like, oh my God. I don't know, man. I just don't want unproven, man. I think like I got the map where I'm just toast with that, man. I'd rather have Jim Caldwell. Not then Sean Payton, but I need somebody. The Sean Payton is the sexy story for me. You got the last question, Cody. I know Josh has got to run.
You wouldn't want Frank Reich over Jim Caldwell?
Oh, they're the same.
Oh, hell yeah.
We have a joke that
I would think Reich would be the prize if you want a former head coach that's not Sean Payton.
My joke.
Tony does not speak for both of us. I would love Frank Reich to be the head coach. And you know what? No,
they're the same dude.
No, listen, I'm actually so happy. No, I like Wright better than Caldwell, and that's actually I'm glad that you brought that up. Apparently, Frank Reich's daughter is now working for the Panthers organization. Is there any smoke to that fire, or maybe where there's smoke, there's smoke? Frank is the name that I heard rumors that apparently his interview went really well. Is that a name that you think is very much in play for the Panthers?
It's just so hard to parse this stuff because so much of this comes out that you hear stuff and I talk to people and then I hear something and then Tom Pelissero says this and then somebody else says this on Twitter and then this is coming from someone else because it's there's so many different people trying to get so much information out there that it's hard to tell what's actually happening. But ultimately, it's if they wanted to hire Frank Reich, wouldn't they have just done it already? In my opinion, what are they waiting for? So
because they're waiting for Sean Payton.
I think
this is the deal: is Frank Reich is white Jim Caldwell, and Jim Caldwell is black Frank Reich. They're
but
both the same candidate, dude. In fact, they're both the same candidate. They are offensive-minded, experienced, proven, boring, but very good coaches. And if anything, Caldwell's more accomplished than Reich.
Yeah. I'm not arguing. I think Caldwell.
I just don't think it's I'd be fine with either one of them. I agree. They're the same person to me either way. It's about the same product that you're getting. I just, I don't know if it's sexy enough.
I agree with you. I also think
I would love Jim Caldwell though.
I think David Tepper came into this coaching search with the idea that he wanted to hire a young, blazing offensive coordinator, and it's going to take someone like Sean Payton to get him off of that. So if it's not, I just stick with the pick I made in the preseason that if it's not Sean Payton, it's going to be a young offensive coordinator, and you could just choose who you want. Personally, I think it might be Kafka.
Wow. Former walk-on to UNC, I think, or UNC quarterback, maybe Tar Heel.
Yeah, the stuff was fun because he's a North Carolina guy. It was exciting. Also, I'm not familiar with. I just found out Kafka has a shaved head and is bald, which I was pretty excited about.
Very bald.
Fun. Yeah.
So, Josh, this is my final question. We appreciate your time hanging out with us as always.
Yeah, of course.
We'd be remiss if we didn't at least spend one question on the quarterbacks. It's over the tip of everyone's tongue. What do the Panthers do? Do we go out and try and convince a veteran? I know you mentioned Tom Brady already. Derek Carr has been a big name that's kind of been associated with the Panthers. Is that too much like what the Panthers have already done in previous seasons? Or do you think that the Panthers are going to look more towards the draft to try and bring one in? Or my favorite option, give Matt Corral a chance.
I think that I think I'm going to do the same thing I did with the coaching search, which is that I have said for the past few months that the Panthers would be using their first round draft pick on a quarterback. And I think that's probably still going to be the case unless somebody takes them off of that. And I don't think Derek Carr is going to take them off of it, but I do think Tom Brady would. And I do think Lamar Jackson probably would too. But ultimately, I think it's one of those top tier quarterbacks that if they feel like they can get their head on, then they're going to try their best. But I can guarantee you that if a Lamar Jackson trade rumor gets started, the Panthers are going to be right at the forefront of it, and whether Sean Payton is here or not. And I would imagine that especially if Sean comes, then you're going to see the Brady rumors really start to kick up. But they may just kick up just in general, because it's East Coast. I think Brady wants to win, so he's going to stay in the NFC, and there just aren't a ton of quarterback list teams that have the kind of talent that the Panthers have. So that kind of makes sense to me. But ultimately, I think you're going to see the Panthers with a rookie quarterback on that roster, whether they get it at 9 or 5 or 6 or 2 or wherever they get it, or 34. I think that's what ends up happening.
Fantastic stuff. Like Greg said on the Tuesday night show, what a boss move it would be for the Panthers to get Sean Payton and ultimately wreck the Saints, and then Tom Brady and wreck the Buccaneers. How do we screw up the Atlanta Falcons? Maybe we just send them Al Holcomb, some people would say.
Get Julio. And why not?
Julio's a bum at this point. Still can't. If you can't catch touchdowns with Tom Brady, you can't catch touchdowns, bro.
Yeah, he'd be like the third option on the Panthers.
Just 7,000 yards and 1 touchdown. Josh, tell us where they can get after you in the Riot Report. I know you guys did. The Roaring Riot was doing good stuff this year, and it seems like we're heading back in the direction of us partying together and watching football.
Let's hope so, man. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Josh Klein Rules, or the Riot Report at our Riot Report. We also do, during the season, we do a daily newsletter. It's a little bit more sporadic during the off season, but you can sign up for that newsletter. It's kind of like the easiest way is like, newsletters that come in every day. They curate the news with a little letter with our personal opinion up at the top, and then the biggest stories from Panther land. And like memes and fun stuff. So it's super fun. So I encourage you to do that. And then the Roaring Riot is all around the world. We closed the year with just under 7,000 members, 42 chapters. So anywhere that you live, literally not just the United States, if you live anywhere in the world, there's probably a Roaring Riot chapter around you where you can go and watch Panther games. You can watch Tom Brady or Lamar Jackson or CJ Stroud, or Will Penix throwing touchdown passes with other Panther fans. Next
Called
year,
by Sean Payton.
Yeah, don't watch games alone. It's so much more fun when you can watch them with other people. So,
fantastic stuff. Yeah,
Matt
thank
Corral.
you for your chat, man. Thanks for hanging out with us, Josh.
Of course, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Cody, I was going to say one thing about the Tom Brady stuff is, I know everybody says stick in the NFC because he wants to win. I think it's Miami, dude.
Well, yeah, who wouldn't want to go to Miami?
They already lost a draft pick for him before, like last year. You might as well go get him now.
Isn't that where all geriatrics go before retirement or during retirement?
I think Aaron Rodgers is. I would, if I was I think Aaron Rodgers would be great there. So that would be a good thing.
It's a destination, and there was last year that's what they wanted to do. Or that Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's why they lost the draft pick. They lost the first round draft pick because we've been talking about breaking the rules. They broke the rules even more in some ways. They were tampering. So I don't know. Is the Sean Payton news is still the sexy news, Cody? I mean, the beat.
Well, it's clearly the news that you think is the sexiest. You mentioned sexy.
Yeah, it'd be good for the podcast. Number one, it would be incredibly good for the podcast because the safe 7-year route, like say Matt Rule's route would have worked, it would have just been, I mean, it's not that I didn't want it to work. That's all we've ever done is just like trudge along. And we have said we're trudging along with Ron Rivera and then this Matt Rule team first stuff. And you know what? We're no better.
But do you really think that we're number one on top of Sean Payton's list? Like as a fan,
if you would pay him whatever.
I mean, as a fan, I understand why we would say that, it would be a good option for, both of them, Sean Payton and Tom Brady. We have a good offensive line. You have DJ Moore. You have a burgeoning Terrace Marshall Jr. I don't know, man. I kind of think that a big name like Russell Wilson is, and for as bad as his year was this year, and I know that he was dog shit this year, I do still think a name like Russell Wilson is probably a little more tempting to someone who's looking to come into an organization right away and to be able to compete. And yeah, absolutely. The money talks.
It's just going to come down to money.
And
look, that's what happened with Deshaun Watson, right?
No one has more money than the Walton. So
all right, well, that's fine. Like if they are willing to, but are they as desperately? The thing is this is nobody has more money than the Waltons, but there is a tipping point too. David Tepper has enough to go sit down at that poker table. So the Waltons maybe, but they ain't that big of a stack. You know what I'm saying? Like he has the money to pay Sean Payton.
They have like $20 billion.
I don't
more
care,
than
but
David
like I
Tepper.
don't. All right,
That's
look, if it's
insane.
a dick swinging contest, I don't think that they like. I wouldn't be worried about that. I think that at the end of the day, David Tepper has enough money to say whatever they pay you, I will pay you more.
I mean, he's
And
probably
then
gonna
if
have
they
no
say
choice.
that, then I don't think they have that same mentality right now that they have to win. You know what I'm saying? Is like I think at some point they're just going to say, "All right, we just don't want to pay that much." They've already paid a bazillion draft picks. They're paying a shit ton to Homeboy already. You know, at some point, like, and I know it doesn't go against. I just think David Tepper has enough cash to hang.
What makes you think that they wouldn't want to pay that much, especially knowing that they can sign the biggest check that they want to? And you have to understand the
Because
narrative
there's at some
around
point
it.
they would
The
just
na-
look at it like as a bad business deal. So what
well,
if Tepper
because
said just this?
they
I'll
already
just
got
give you 30
three.
million a year. I know it's ridiculous, but I'll do it.
But listen, but this is what I'm saying though. Though it already looks to the public like the Denver Broncos got fleeced already out of draft picks, out of the guaranteed dollars for Russell Wilson. So if you're going to salvage that and make that trade worth it, you would want a supposed offensive mastermind proven like Sean Payton. I'm just going to be real. I think that the Broncos are the number one in the clubhouse right now. Until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I think so.
And
I mean,
you're not wrong, Tony. I have no doubt in my mind that David Tepper is going to break out the checkbook and sign, write however many zeros he needs to in order to entice Sean Payton here. I just don't know if it's going to be enough. And I honestly, as much as you might not want to hear it, Tony, you might not want to hire an unproven guy, but it really does feel like the Panthers are wanting to go in the direction of a Shane Stitchen or a Ken Dorsey. Ben Johnson was the number one leader in the wheelhouse before he said that he wasn't going to come here anymore. So those are still big time options.
I agree. I just don't think it'll be money that keeps us from getting Sean Payton.
Oh, sure.
I think.
Yeah,
here talking about money. Hit us up these super chats, and then we're gonna get out of here.
Yeah, man. Stephen Lane with the 199 love bomb says, "Hello, my brother Nick Montero coming together with two big time super chats." He says the training is a crock of shit. Is this fellow giving pressure to make things fair by forcing an ideology? They force people to do something they don't agree with / waste time, and the more they push back and fight. Yeah, I mean,
think the training. I think that certain you guys just got to recognize sometimes the trainings and the hoops and the bureaucracy is just CYA. Cover your ass. Yeah, I mean it's just like
reasons now.
Gymnastics, but yeah. At some point you just say I'll do the training.
Yeah. He also says with the $10, he said, how many interviews has Flores got? Flores
they say he's a lead for Arizona.
Oh, is that what they're saying now?
That's what I heard today.
Flores
is that
he's a proven coach with wins. He wins when the deck is stacked. Wilkes is a part of a lawsuit. It's a red flag to hire someone who has fired a lawsuit against the employer. I thought that would have been his ace up his sleeve, is that he did have that.
And wait, you can't say that though. And about Wilkes and not Flores is the first person on the lawsuit. He's the first plaintiff. Wilkes is a co-plaintiff. The first person that filed the lawsuit was Flores.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no, that's great.
I agree. I thought it would be that's the thing is that's why I think it's easier to hire Sean Payton than it is to hire Shane Stitchen.
I wouldn't easier. It's just
because of you could just say this is Sean Payton is exactly the type of coach we've been looking for the whole time, and he's Super Bowl winner. Wilkes, but like with Wilkes, you gotta say, oh, well, you did a good job, but we're gonna hire this guy who just may be cool. I think Sean Payton has enough weight to his resume is heavy enough, padded enough to overcome.
But dude, what someone else pointed out to me on the internet? Imagine, they have this Rooney Rule, but if a lot of these teams are flying out these minority coaches, but they're just trying to satisfy the Rooney Rule, it's like they're flying these across the country for nothing. If at the end of the day they have no intention of hiring them, it's such a broken system, and I just don't know what the fix to it is. God of Blackness with the $20 says Caldwell not accepting anything less than a head coach. The Rooney Rule is effing up. We could have instantly chased Caldwell as OC if we could have hired Wilkes sooner, but the RR forced us into interview alleged token black coaches. Thank
I'd
you,
like
God of
Caldwell.
Blackness.
I think I'd like, to be honest, I'd be a little bit more excited about Caldwell than Wilkes.
I don't. I'm just not pumped on Caldwell, man.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's fine. I'm not telling you to be, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
this is that it's like it's just, that's why I say Frank Wright and Caldwell are the same dudes. It's like, I wouldn't be upset about, and this is how I am with Wilkes. I wouldn't be upset about it.
oh
You know?
yeah, I mean,
Man, I wouldn't get up here and be like, "This is the." If they said Steve Wilkes is, if they said Frank Wright, if they said Jim Caldwell, I wouldn't be like, "This is the most fucked up." I have all these concerns.
let me ask you this. And let me ask the chat room as well. What is the one name that you don't want to hear as the next head coach
Ken
of the
Dorsey.
Carolina Panthers? Ken Dorsey.
Yeah.
See, I'm trying to think if there's a name that I really just don't want. To be honest, it's probably because he's older, but it is, if we're in
Who,
that
Caldwell?
scenario, yeah, I
He
would,
is
I would,
67.
I would prefer to go with Steve Wilkes than
Okay.
Caldwell. Like to me, it's a lateral move.
That's
I mean,
fair.
to be honest, there really isn't. Oh, but Dan Quinn, that
Oh,
would
yeah,
definitely
you
be a
nailed
name.
it.
I would,
Yeah,
dude,
I couldn't.
I
Yeah,
would
I'd be
never
fucking
want
done.
Dan Quinn to be
Not
a part
done,
of
but
this
yeah,
team.
that would be the worst.
Yeah,
That'd be a
but
slap
dude,
in the
to
face
be
of Steve
honest,
Wilkes.
man,
Dude.
like I'm not really mad at where we are right now, Tony. It's not too many names that I would really be disappointed with. I've looked up enough of Shane Steichen and Ken Dorsey and Frank Reich. Like I feel like I know enough about these guys as coaches that if I got a news update saying that any of those guys are the head coach of the Panthers, I'm fine. I feel way better about it than the first time that we hired Matt Rule, a up jump college coach that's never proven anything before.
I have 3 categories the way I view it. I'm going to react. I have 3 reactions for when the news breaks. Either we hire one of these 3 coaches, Wilkes, Wright, or Caldwell. That to me is the not upset about this. Let's do this slow, like good move. Let's make good draft picks. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of like the I'm trying to think of like almost a restaurant that's always good. It's not great, not bad, not cheap. You know what I'm saying? Just we just like it. The other one is if we get the Dorsey or the Stitchin or the Ben Johnson. I know Ben Johnson's not in, but Kafka, these names. I'm just gonna have the crazy concern that they're riding too high on too short of a resume of actual, like, yeah, they've been in the NFL, but like Ben Johnson only played call plays this year. Ken Dorsey this year. Stitchin has 2 years, right? So it's like that to me, that's the concern. And then there's the sexy names that would have been Jim Harbaugh and now Sean Payton, like the names that are like, woo.
Are you disappointed? So basically disappointed if the hire ends up being a coach that isn't a quote unquote sexy hire. If
No,
it's
once
not
they
a Payton, if it's
disappointed,
not
I
a
just would
Harbaugh.
say this is that I would not be I don't know, man. It's just like a level of excitement when I sit down in this chair. There's times where it's like, oh, this is what, like, let's play it. Let's be reasonable and this and that. And then sometimes, like, even like back in them days with Cam, it's like I could be unreasonable. Like, it would just be exciting enough. The other ones just would be, I would be fine with them. I wouldn't be upset with any
You
of those.
want your guy to have some prior NFL coaching, head coaching experience, correct?
I think it would just make me feel more safe.
But also,
I think
Tony,
the other
to
ones
me,
are just risk. I would be waiting for the risk to be disproven.
I
Like the
understand what you're
entire
saying.
time would be waiting for Kafka to show me that it wasn't a big gamble.
But I feel like, so I definitely understand what you're saying. And I feel like the concerns that you're voicing are the concerns of a lot of Panther fans. But I feel like it's kind of trying to have it both ways. If the Panthers are going to do something new and not be the same old boring run-of-the-mill Panthers, Well, to me, that move is going to hire a Frank Reich, a Jim Caldwell, even
Steve Wilkes.
Yeah, even Steve Wilkes. The fact
I
that
see that all as the same pick.
The fact
same
that
old
those
Panthers.
the fact that the right. So how I don't see
But at least
how
Reich
you could
and Caldwell are at least offensive guys.
Right,
At least you can
these
say
young
that.
guys
We've
have to
never
have a
had an.
chance. They're gonna get the head coaching job at some point.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. What are you talking
said that about Eric
that's
Bieniemy.
the trend
You
of the
said that about
NFL.
Pep Hamilton. You said that about Joe Brady. You said that we could go down a list of 25 names that everybody said is the guy who's going to be the next head coach, and then they're named as Pep Hamilton.
Eric
Pep Hamilton
Bieniemy has to have some stuff in his closet.
No,
that's like
they just
preventing him
everybody
from
just
being a coach.
truly knows this is that Andy Reid's the mastermind.
But dude,
That's
these
it.
coaches
That's like
are the hot
not.
name
No,
for a
if they-
reason.
If Ben Johnson and the Lions are not good next year, he will not be the hot name in 2024.
Oh, but yeah, that goes without saying. But
Byron Leftwich, another one.
What
I'm saying is this: is those guys are not guaranteed to be head coaches. They're not guaranteed to be head coaches one day. Not even close. In fact, I would say this: if two out of those three guys, those names, Ben Johnson, I think this: if Kafka, Stitchen, and Ben Johnson, if 2 out of 3 of those are head coaches' names, I would be sometime in the future, I'd be surprised.
But Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Brian Daboll, the guy for the Minnesota Vikings, all of these guys at one point were the up-and-coming upstart offensive mind that didn't necessarily have the head coaching pedigree. You might head coach. The fact of the matter is, Tony, the trend of the current NFL is offense, and they want
that's why Caldwell and Reich are safe.
But but safe isn't. To me,
they're safe and fresh.
Does not feel like the way to go. It just doesn't. It feels like you're building.
And we should go with Sean
Panther
Payton.
Teams of the past.
Then I want to go with Sean Payton. That's what I want.
So are you saying that Ken Dorsey, Kafka, and Stitchen are basically all the same person?
Yeah, except for I think that Kafka and Dorsey are even lower on the list than Shane Stitchen to me. I think Kafka and Dorsey are the same person, and then Stitchen is intriguing.
Well, why? What makes him intriguing?
2 years as offensive coordinator with successful offense. Like more of a track record. That's it. Like it's not a one-hit wonder.
Justin Herbert, his rookie season in the NFL.
See, and then 2 years of Justin Fields really progressing and being a lot better.
You mean
so? I just have more of a sample set. I just have a larger data set that makes it seem. I just feel like Ken Dorsey and Kafka are too we just don't even know enough about them. It's just because they've had success this year, and we know their names. That's it. And if Dorsey and them go and slay it next year, then I'll be like, that's what I want. And I think that's what Ben Johnson's trying to do, but it's also a risk. It's a total risk. If the Lions go from knocking on the door, you know what? That's what they feel like they are. They feel like they're knocking on the door, almost made the playoffs this year, which they could have back end, but they're assuming that next year is just going to be an improvement, a 10%, 20% growth, like the natural trajectory. But if it goes backwards, all those dudes are done.
How about this? It's going to be an offensive-minded coach, because if the mindset of the Carolina Panthers,
it's not Steve Wilkes. Then
if the mindset of the Carolina Panthers is that we are going to get a quarterback by the free agent market or by the draft, I guarantee you that the goal is going to be to pair a young rookie quarterback with a play caller. And
I also don't think Sean Payton wants a rookie quarterback.
That's what signals that they're going to go in that direction. But again,
Derek Carr and Sean Payton. That's what I think is going to happen.
Josh was right in saying that if Sean Payton is going to come here, David Tepper is going to have to agree to do for Sean. Probably say he was never going to do again after he fired Matt Rule, and that's give up a lot of say-so around this organization to Sean Payton. And you know what, Tony?
I think it
If
was
you look-
CK
if you
that
look
said
at-
in a private
if you-
chat that if you got Sean Payton, and you actually could get the terms that work, that David Tepper might just turn right to the side and fire Scott Fitter in the same
Yeah.
room. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that's what it takes? Scott, you're fucking out of here.
Yeah, but I don't know if I mean, it's all about David Tepper and the might that he's in right now. And you know, Tony, you're talking about safe. Just because these guys are proven doesn't necessarily mean that all of that power is safe within their hands. Shout out to White Chocolate Espresso. He brings up Bill Belichick all the time, and that he's the de facto general manager of the Patriots, and he might be the best head coach of all time, but
He's not been great.
He is decidedly not a good drafter. And I think that's a
understand.
reasonable.
I mean, no, those are
criticism.
reasonable concerns to have. Those are reasonable concerns to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I got to get out of here, dude. Let's go ahead and close out the show. It's been fun. C3 Panthers podcast live on Tuesday nights. Friday free for all is thumping. And I tell you, we've had so much great support in our 10th season. We're approaching the end of the 10th season. We reboot in our 11th season. Will be after the first week after the Super Bowl. New year, new day, new dawn. And no matter who it's going to be, we're going to find reasons to be excited and hopeful. And that's the one thing. I don't have any names that I just freaking hate. I think Ken Dorsey's my least. Just the least on my list.
Yeah,
but
no,
anyway.
But by the way, I want to say real quick before we get out of here, I want to thank everyone who sent me well wishes. Tony, remember my
I don't
cat,
even know what happened. Yeah, I've been meaning to ask you.
You know my cat that jumped up on my table during the podcast one time? Well, he got hit on the road the other day.
Oh,
So
man, I'm sorry to hear that.
I've been really upset and depressed about it. I'll be 33 years old next month, and I've had the cat since I was 21 years old, since sophomore in college. Yeah, man. So thanks to everyone that sent me very kind messages on Twitter and Facebook. C3 family, man, I love y'all. Can't tell y'all enough. But I just wanted to thank y'all. I definitely appreciate that. Tony Dunn, love you, brother. Appreciate you. Happy we were able to do this tonight and talk to Josh. And hey, tomorrow, 7 p.m., C3 Friday free for all for the fans, by the fans. You can join the show, be a part of the show, and join via StreamYard. And we can talk about all these topics some more. Tony Dunn, any last words before we jump out?
Take us out of here, brother. Take us out of here.
C3 Nation, keep pounding.